talk about, you know what I want to talk about?
More.
We almost made it through an entire show. I know we just recorded another show before this without mentioning anything Scandal or Vanderpump Rules, but this isn't really necessarily Scandal, but I love how Lala shades Luis on Watch What Happens. And I am here with Kim and everyone who thinks I'm a tree hugger. I mean, I don't give Luis a free pass. Kim D and I say so much about Luis. I mean, I guess we're just so insignificant, but I love how Teresa has now blocked Lala because she kind of shaded Luis and said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And maybe he's not that upstanding the way Randall wasn't. And yet here, Kim D and I are that say much work. I mean, we had a whole show about Patreon called Luis's strange reunion behavior. And yet, I mean, Teresa knows, trust me, Teresa knows what Kim and I are up to. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want more details, but yet we're not blocked. So go Trey for not blocking us. But wow, Lala's blocked by Teresa. That's a new one.
Well,
that one doesn't.
I have no idea why.
I think because just of saying on, Watch What Happens. Louis is, where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, she said it. And I think Teresa blocked her for putting Louis's name in her mouth. And she's like, fuck you.
Probably. I mean, wow. I was gonna bring up VPR. Where are you at? And I actually finally read the excerpt, by the way, in Stassi's book. But Faith Stowers now has, I believe, $7,000 in donations to her $20,000 GoFundMe. And it ended up getting a lot of press after you and I talked about it.
What did Stassi say? I was like, oh, I just don't care enough to read these words. So I skipped over it. And now we have Sarah Fraser, boots on the ground, who read it. So tell us, because I just couldn't do it.
It's a couple pages. I believe it's like 4 pages. And she goes into the detail. And she basically says that Faith hooked up with Jax. And this really started for her loyalty and friendship to Brittany. And she hated, and she's full disclosure in that she disliked Faith and she wanted to get Faith back. And she says that, there was a surveillance video of somebody stealing items. I don't know if they were items belonging to someone on Vanderpump Rules or if it was a completely different person. But she and Kristen Doty looked at the video and said that could be Faith. And
they sure did.
And they called the police, which was a huge mistake, she says in the book, and said, we think we know who this is. It's Faith Stowers. Well, of course, come to find out it was not Faith. And Stassi basically says that she had no intentions of it being racial, but she sees how, as Faith, as a Black woman, how that was so damaging and how, to accuse somebody of that, especially a person of color, a woman of color, the difference is that, lots of times people of color are not given the benefit of the doubt that white people are. And she talks about in the book that they are both women are living different experiences. She realizes that's where her white privilege was, and that Faith, is a Black woman in America having an experience, and she was wrong. So that's where it is in the book.
Which is exactly what happened. Like, we knew that already. Yes.
So I don't know. I don't know how you can sue for that.
But why? Right. Like, what is Faith's, what does she want to sue for? That's what I don't understand.
I'm reading between the
lines. She doesn't
want
to be mentioned in the book. I mean, I don't know if you can't stop someone from mentioning you.
I think my understanding is I think that part of this is Kristen Doty has personally apologized to Faith for the damage that she's done, but Stassi never has. And I think Faith feels like that story, people wanted to hear Stassi's side, and Stassi profited off of a false story about Faith. And isn't Faith entitled to some compensation?
I don't think so. Without overthinking it, as a lawyer, it doesn't. I also don't practice law anymore.
This story's been trending all week long. Most people are on your side. That most people are saying 2 things can be true. What Stassi did was racist, but Faith does not have a legal case. That's like from what I read.
I don't see a legal case. I mean, I've talked about my experiences here. I don't like this housewife. I don't like that housewife. You can talk about anything you want. So, I mean, Stassi's giving her, I mean, she doesn't even have to be nice to Faith. She could trash her in the book if she wants. I mean, if you say something that's like not true based in fact, that's another story, but she's not saying that. So I think Faith has no leg to stand on in this lawsuit at all. That's my honest opinion.
You know, we'll see where it goes. I tend to agree with you. And, she's not quite at $7,000 for this. And I think the problem is, when you sue somebody, she's trying to raise 20 grand, but you need so much money to go. Cause these lawsuits are ongoing. And, I think it's going to take probably 50,000, 60,000 to sue Stassi, really.
Well, and if it goes to court, that's 250,000 minimum. So when I tell you nobody is suing us, not, I mean, knock on wood, but no one's going to sue us,
please,
Sarah.
no. No, thank you.
What do you think of Kyle hanging out with Kathy and Kim, girl?
I love it. I love it. I love to see those girls, those three together. They're a Hollywood duo.
Trio.
Thank you. And what you're talking about is a video that Kyle just put up like moments ago on her Instagram. They were all doing karaoke.
I don't know where or for what though, but they were together.
I feel like he was celebrating some family
I
event.
mean, you don't see Kathy and Kyle speaking or hugging in it, but they are in very close proximity. So look, when Teresa says to Joe, I will never speak to you again, and Melissa's like, oh, this is the end. This is nice. Your sisters. Joe's like, oh, this is lovely. And Melissa laughs and says, she's never going to talk to you again. She's saying her goodbyes. I mean, that's real. Now, we stand by what we said. They might have to film together for the money, but they already tried that years ago. 2 million's a lot of money. So I'm not saying Teresa will never film with Melissa again, despite what she might say, but that really is over. There's no relationship. It's not going to be salvaged. I do think Kathy and Kyle will salvage this. They've been through this many times before. It's not as deep seated as the other. I mean, you know what the problem with it is?
What?
You're not even fucking friends with Lisa Rinna anymore. Like, this has driven a wedge between you guys. It's how do you come back from that with Rinna? You don't speak. Of course, if Kathy, if Rinna and Kyle ran into each other, they would have a drink. They would be cordial. They would catch up, but you're not in each other's lives. You're not friends. So you should have taken your sister's side. That's honestly how I feel in that situation. I do. I'm not saying, I'm sure there's a gray